The Airbnb game is changing, leaving many hosts figuring out what to do next to get more consistent bookings. In today's episode, I bring on an expert in the space in the Charlotte market, Hemang Bhatt, to be able to break down exactly what he's doing to be getting more consistent bookings, and he's building out his Airbnb management. If you haven't listened to this podcast before, my name is Chris Rickenbaugh, and this is the Leadway Wealth Builders Podcast. I am documenting my journey in real estate and business and also bringing on high-level investors and business owners to be able to break down their business and how they built it. You can follow me at chris.rickenbaugh on Instagram and TikTok, where you can follow along on my journey. And wherever you're listening to this podcast, thank you so much. It means the world to us that you continue to listen, be able to like, share, and subscribe so we can help more people in this industry to be able to gain more knowledge and just flat inspiration, because it's so scary to get started for some people. But being able to know if I can do it, anybody else can do it in this space. So thank you so much for listening to episode 200. Super excited that I've been doing this for so long, and super excited to have our guest on today as well. So without further ado, let's hop into Hemang's episode. All right, Hemang, welcome to the Leadway Wealth Builders Podcast. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Hemang, we talked a little bit before the podcast, and so you own 10 Airbnbs. You've helped me sell a couple houses, and it started to boom here recently. You started to get a lot more traction. Spoke at a couple events about the Airbnbs, and I said, "Man, let's get you on the podcast to break down what's going on in that space." So, I'll let you do a quick introduction about who you are, what you do, and what you were doing before real estate to get to where you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my name is Hemang. I am a realtor specializing in short-term rentals here in Charlotte. Also help design, set up, and manage these short-term rentals as well. I got into this business probably in real estate. I got into this business in like 2019, but in Charlotte specifically, I got into this business in June of last year, so 2025, uh, out of a necessity. So I got laid off from my corporate job, and then given that I was already a part-time agent in different states, and already investing for myself, I decided that let's give real estate a chance, full chance, rather than just a part-time gig. So based off of that, decided to go all in June 2025, and thankfully haven't had a need to look back.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know we've done two already. You helped me sell two problem childs of mine, but that's awesome. What was that W-2 job?
Yeah, so my W-2 job was in life science consulting. So I did a lot of, so my background is in biology and neuroscience. So I got my undergrad degree in that, and I got a business degree from UMass Amherst. But essentially, my job was out of college was working for a pharmaceutical company. So what I did was a lot of manufacturing, quality assurance, engineering, and then I transitioned over to working for a consulting firm on their sales and account management side of it as well. So I helped expand their territory and portfolio. And then post COVID, decline in life sciences and just reshuffling of budgets essentially resulted in some layoffs, and I was part of that.
Yeah. Do you think if it wasn't because of that, you would have still been in that industry, or was that what was the push to eventually get into the real estate?
That layoff was a blessing for me because it gave me that push that I needed. Being in a consulting, being in a W-2 role, just having a good salary, makes you complacent, right? So it doesn't really push you out of your boundaries or push you to try to do something different. So now that I didn't have a complete like a salary or anything like that, I was able to take that push, and that layoff is essentially what allowed me to get into real estate. If it didn't, I would still probably be looking for a job.
Yeah, and so I want to touch on that point because you mentioned Like you're basically working for a commission as an agent compared to what you were doing. So were those still commission based, that W-2, or was it salaried?
It was a salaried job with a consistent paycheck every 2 weeks, and
Gotcha.
then I had commission on top of my base salary or a bonus, depending on the transaction.
Yeah. So what's the mindset now compared to when you were in the W-2 job versus now, hey, you're a realtor and it's straight commission, eat what you kill.
It is very much again like having your back against the wall because it's essentially you don't know what you don't know, right? Like you're consistently chasing now. So like in my W-2 role, I was very much a farmer when I was in that account management role. So I already had leads coming in. I had relationships already built, so it was mainly nurturing those relationships. And now I'm a hunter and a farmer, right? So I have to keep chasing, build that relationship up, and then maintain that relationship afterwards. So it's very, very, very different. I am very blessed with having a W-2 role because it gave me the structure, gave me the organization that I needed to be able to transition into a entrepreneurial role. But overall, uh, it was unique. It was different for sure.
Yeah, I remember when I was in a W-2 role kind of like that for about 7 months, and I'm like, man, I don't I don't like this. For me, it was having a boss over my shoulder. That's what I couldn't handle. But yeah, definitely two different worlds there, being, an investor now compared to them. But, flash forward into the story, you start getting into real estate and Airbnbs. So so you got let go and you went to go full time into real estate. When did you start managing Airbnbs and saying, hey, this is the niche that I want to be in?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, I actually invested for myself to learn what is within an Airbnb, like what it entails, right? So 2022 is when we purchased a rental property here in Charlotte. At that time, our intentions were actually to move into it and move out of the Northeast, but circumstances changed at that time, having a job as well. We were not able to just pick up and move, so we had to pivot. So we looked into long-term rentals at that time, and then realized that it just wasn't going to work from a cash flow perspective. So then we looked into short-term rentals. Looking into short-term rentals, I didn't know a lot in 2022 at all. I didn't realize that, oh, well, now I purchased the house. Now I need to design it, and then I have to get it set up, and then I have to manage it. How do I design it? How do I set it up from at that time living in Boston to buying in Charlotte? So how do I set it up from so far away? So we hired a property manager. And that was a learning curve in itself because now it's like, oh, great, I'm giving up 20% of my gross income coming in right off the bat, right? So like had to learn about the analysis that came from it. So essentially learning through my own mistakes or my own experiences is what allowed me to start managing for others as well and how to manage it efficiently with the investor hat on to make sure that they're not going to lose money as well, right? So I didn't start managing until I went full time into real estate, which was June 2025. Essentially, what I ended up doing was getting my realtor license, became a broker here in Charlotte, and then was able to use that to assist buyers and investors purchase a property. And then going through the full life cycle of, well, now you purchased it. This is the other things that need to get done. And for that, and that's how I ended up becoming a co-host for a lot of investors.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that's one of the things that a lot of people see in the beginning because they think it's like the barriers of entry. Owning your own Airbnb is one thing, but being able to uh, co or co-host one, that's a big advantage because most of the time it's already furnished and you just have to take over the management and upgrade it. So that's about as far as I know because I just have one little Airbnb and, it's a more of a medium term rental. But what you guys are doing is, hey, strictly short term rentals and what makes sense. So what was when did you start to add a couple to the management side and see, okay, this is exactly where I need to be?
Yeah, so it ended up becoming around that time. So I let everyone know that, hey, now I'm a realtor. I'm also focusing on Airbnb, short-term rentals, and this is what I can offer you, right? So at that time, that's how I got started. What I did was just cold outreach to existing investors that have Airbnbs in this area. Few were also just friends and an agent of mine that helped me purchase my property. They had Airbnbs as well, so they were looking to transition from a property manager or from actually managing themselves. And then that kind of helped me get my foot in the door with a few Airbnbs right up front. And then just outreach from the realtor side of it is what helped me scale because I was able to showcase to these investors that, well, I can be a full package for them, right? So A to Z, able to provide the full experience when it comes to purchasing out of state as well.
Gotcha. So let's go into breaking down like what's making Airbnb good right now because everybody I think saw the boom during COVID. There was more travel nurses, there was so much more travel because I think everybody was locked up in their house for, basically a couple months. So we saw that boom, and now it's starting to kind of teeter back in the other direction to get a little bit more stable. They have to be unique stays. So, what are you running through on the numbers with these new buyers and these new hosts to be able to make sure it's, hey, this is going to cash flow for you and this is a good investment?
Yeah, so back when Airbnb became a huge thing around COVID time, right? So COVID allowed for a lot of people that wanted to keep traveling, but also because hotels were slow or shutting down or being more restrictive, having a private stay while still being able to travel is what allowed Airbnb to consistently be unique and different. At that time, you could put your old furniture in a house and list it and be fine, right? Because people were just interested in having a roof that was over their head and it was private and exclusive to them. Now that COVID is in the past and the pandemic is in the past, Airbnb is becoming more of an experience. So when it comes to purchasing a property, it's more about what are you able to provide to them to be able to stand out from your competition, because now you're essentially operating a small hospitality business. So um, what we prefer to do is provide Airbnbs with like game rooms, hot tubs, an enjoyable backyard, and like just a spacious listing to be able to feel comfortable in, right? So now they're going from just, oh, I have a bed and I have a roof over my head to sweet, my kids can go play games in the garage, or we can go enjoy and relax by a fire pit and the hot tub and grill outside. So it's like unique things like that are allowing is what Airbnb is transitioning over to. So when I'm buying a property for or showing a property to my investors, we are looking at it holistically on what can we do uniquely in this Airbnb or in this property to make it a successful vacation rental.
Gotcha. So the vacation rentals, we typically think of those as like, hey, these are the week-long weekend getaways and not so much like the longer term stays. So with the extra garages, I know we've discussed this before, but you're turning those into the game rooms. Like um, I guess how would you be able to is it house by house on what you're figuring out what needs to be in it, or how are you breaking down what needs to go in that house in that specific area?
It is house by house because every house is different. Some houses have garages, some houses have an extra den space or have a loft. So every house is a little unique. But the foundational goal is how can you add value to that house, right? So if it's a 3 bedroom with a den or a 3 bedroom with an office, can we make that a 4 bedroom? Is it possible to scale it so that way now you're not sleeping just 6 people in the house, but 10 people, 12 people? Like, how are you able to add value from a guest perspective? So every house is unique, every house is a different approach, but that's where I come in, is like provide that strategic analysis of this is what we can do with this property, and this is why I think it's a better investment for you, and go through the numbers with them, like run an entire pro forma, which a lot of agents won't do because they don't understand it. But me being able to set up, design, and manage it, I have that analysis and understanding of it. So I'm able to provide that directly for them.
Yeah. So, what are some of those specific numbers you're looking at? Because you mentioned the pro forma, because you're projecting what this is going to make over the amount of a year. So, you're seeing the upsides, the downsides. So, what are some of those tools to be able to help you understand those numbers going into it?
Yeah, so from anyone that is looking to work in a or buy an Airbnb, the best tool out there is going to be like Rabu or AirDNA, or even if you want to pay $10 to $20 a month, you can get Price Labs reports. So those three are all going to be a good starting point to understand what a market has to offer. And then from there, it's working with an agent that is boots on the ground in that area to be able to dig deeper into, well, that's just your baseline. How can we beat that number, right? So now it's coming into uniqueness and unique factors for those properties specifically. So for me, I use AirDNA, I use Price Labs, and I look at the baseline. And I also have, because I have properties under management, I can look at existing revenue based off of the 2 bedroom condos to 5 bedroom single family homes, right? So I know a range of what nightly rates look like and compare that against AirDNA to show you this is what the baseline looks like, but this is what you can potentially make if you do it a certain way.
And I want to break down some of those specifics that are separating from the rest. So you kind of touched on hot tubs and game rooms, and in our in our market specifically in Charlotte, like we're seeing so many Airbnbs because I know we looked at it on one of my problem properties and said, "Hey, is this even a good opportunity?" And then there's 12 others in the neighborhood. And we already looked at it and we said, okay, well, this is what we're going to have to do by room. This is what we're going to have to do exterior. And I said, I don't think I want to manage that. So,
Yeah.
what are those bigger things that are separating Airbnbs from the others? You know, aside from the hot tubs and the game rooms, like what are we looking for on location and then size of the house to be able to get the max people count?
So it depends, right? So location is going to be very, like, what I tell investors when they're looking at a location is put yourself in the shoes of a guest. When you're searching on Airbnb, how often do you actually know where that house is or what that location looks like, right? You know, generically, this is Charlotte. And then you look on a map and you see that, oh, it's close enough, right? And that's it, right? You're not really looking into, is it in Noda? Is it in Sugar Creek? Like, is it in South End? You're just looking at the listing itself. So the key thing to do is search within a proximity to major points of attraction and then stick to that area. And then from there, make your listing stand out by, or make your listing have all the information within it, right? Of, okay, well, this is how far I am from the airport, or this is how far I am from the more popular restaurants, or whatever you want to, whatever location you want to point out. Aside from that, like when it comes to the house itself, uh, the long gone are the days of just white walls. It's more about painting it properly, attracting it all up front with proper wallpaper, accent walls, unique factors such as murals or neon lights. It's all about how can you attract the end user, the guest, in the first 20 seconds, which is going to be professional photography. But within those professional photography, what is the photographer actually capturing, right? So it's the unique factors like the paints, the accent walls, the murals, the wallpaper, all of that is what is attention grabbing. So that is what's going to help you stand out rather than a plain white wall with made up bed with towels on it, right? So that's what we kind of look at from that perspective to be able to stand out. You can buy a two-bedroom house, townhouse, or you can buy a five-bedroom house as well. That is going to depend on the buying power of the investor. Um, they both will perform well and give you the max revenue for that class of property class that you're buying for.
And moving into the management side of it, because you just mentioned, like, hey, we're going to have specific things. We're going to have special, like, we're going to have the hot tub. We are going to have the game room. How are you managing all of those little things throughout the properties? Because that's a little bit more to manage than, hey, we could throw a cleaner in here. They can, wash the sheets, remake the beds, and clean the dishes, and then they're done. So, how are you managing all of those extra little details in the property and making sure it's the same for every guest?
Yeah, so from an operational perspective, we have proper SOPs in place. We have a whole knowledge base hub. So all of our employees, which is technically our cleaners, and they're going to have access to the cleaning checklist. They're going to have access to property specific instructions. That is what's helping us keep the properties at the highest standard possible. And then when we're setting them up, our contractors, our subcontractors all have directions on exactly what to be looking for and what to be doing as well. But efficient wise, we are essentially looking at it as a full-blown business, right? We have SOPs in place, we have instructions, we have guidance on exactly what to do. Efficient communication is important as well. So we emphasize on all of that.
Yeah, and that makes sense because, you know, being like you said, basically a small business. This is basically a small hotel at this point. And, I've listened to a lot of the other, boutique hotel investors, and they're saying the same things to where, it's not like you're staying at the Comfort Inn. It's not like you're staying at the Hyatt. You're staying at these unique stays in these properties with all of these little things. And the way they manage that is through the SOPs and having all of these systems and employees knowing exactly what to do. So, that's a ton up front. So it sounds like, the more you manage, the more you're going to be able to have this under control. But how are you doing that as a co-host when all of these are different owners and you're having to manage the property, but you're also having to manage the owner?
Yeah, so we use to manage these properties, we use a property management software. So the one that we utilize is called Hospitable. Hospitable helps us streamline listings. So essentially, John Smith and Jane Smith have properties, right? So all of those are coming funneled into our property management software. And then from there, we're able to handle guest communication, pricing strategies, and also have owner dashboards as well. So our owners are able to have access to what their monthly revenue looks like as well within that. So our property management software is our biggest tool to be able to manage the guest side and also our investor side or client side.
Yeah, and as your business grows, like your specific management company, you say you're managing 10 as of right now, and we talked before that you have a couple more coming up. How are you managing the growth in this? Because that could easily go from 10 to 15 to 20 really quick. Or are you managing it, making it a smaller growth pattern?
So we have a VA. We're actually in process of onboarding. So they are essentially going to be handling a lot of the day-to-day admin work as well. So when it comes to different properties and there's maintenance issues that may come up from that, they are the ones that are going to be scheduling this out and handling the day-to-day operation and coordination between the handymen, the cleaners, and all that stuff while I am focusing more on the growth side, the sales revenue side of it. So I'm bringing in more of the transaction, more of the sales, meaning the houses to manage. The goal isn't to scale extremely fast. The goal is to scale efficiently, right? So I don't want to lose out on quality, which is what makes me stand out from a lot of these other co-hosts because I've seen it. A lot of people are bringing on all these properties, 10 to 15 a month or whatever it may be, a quarter. Um, but at the end of the day, the homeowner is unhappy because they are left in the dark of what's happening. For me, it's all about proper communication. If onboarding efficiently, I am happy to say no, because that's I don't want to overstretch myself and also do a disgrace to the investors and the homeowners that are expecting a positive return on their investment. So we're not trying to scale extremely fast, but we're also not trying to slow down the process. So we're hiring to be able to take on more efficiently.
And as for managing the guests, so you mentioned you're bringing on the VA now. So you're doing all the messaging and, what SOPs do you have to manage the guest questions? Because with 10 different properties, that's a lot coming in. I mean, you're expecting the calls at 1 in the morning. You're expecting the, hey, I got locked out of the house, even though there's a backup key. So how are you managing that right now? Like, how crazy has that been?
Hasn't been too bad because we have it a lot very automated, right? So we have guest messaging, we have guest templates. All of that is organized and managed. So when a guest checks in to the time the guest checks out, they get a full guidebook as well on exactly what to look for. So all of the commonly asked questions, which may change from property to property, but typically it's the same, right? Hey, what's the Wi-Fi password, or how do I get into the house? All of that we give up front, so that way the questions come in are actually something we have to respond back to. So that way we're able to make it so a seamless process for the guests as well. Luckily, I haven't had a lot of 1 a.m. phone calls. It's been very streamlined in the sense of we let them know that up till 8 p.m. you'll get a response within an hour. Anything after that, please have some level of respect on the fact that it's after business hours, unless it's an emergency. We will get back to you the following day. So just having proper communication and proper expectations set up front with the guest allows us to keep all of that in check for the guest.
The automation definitely sounds like it was the hardest part. When I talk to other Airbnb owners, they're the ones complaining about that, but they're also the ones that, hey, I just left the key under the mat. You should be good. Treat it like your home. And the one, she just had a massive party thrown at her property, and she said, "Yeah, I looked it up and they're just partying or doing this for one night, and it says, just two guests, but like that's a party."
Yeah.
Yeah, and no cameras on the properties, so that seems like a lot to manage for me on the bigger scale. But what has been the craziest, uh, managing experience so far for you?
The craziest was we actually had uh, uh, it wasn't a party, but we definitely had more guests than we were expecting at a house. And then it turned out that they were too drunk. They got into arguments and fights, and we had some shootings. Not anyone actually getting hurt, but there were definitely firearm at the house, and cops were called, and they were immediately evicted from the house, but definitely a safety concern from there. But that helped us put a lot of guardrails in place. So now we have security deposits, we have rental agreements in place, we have a lot of pre-vetting that goes on, like ID verification, and all of that ahead of time to be able to avoid these problems from occurring. So, yeah, the worst experience is what helps us improve and make us more efficient.
Yeah, you're only prepared or man, what's that quote? Your lowest level of preparation is the most prepared you'll be. I think that doesn't sound right. But either way, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Uh yeah, so being able to manage all of that, what do you have coming up that you're excited about, especially in the Charlotte market? I've always hear rumblings about, hey, is Airbnb control going to be able to is it coming here to where there can only be so many Airbnbs? Is it getting outlawed? So, what are you seeing in the market shift, and what's coming up?
Yes. So I've seen a lot of out-of-state investors start pouring money into Charlotte. A lot of people are looking to purchase here, especially short-term rentals because of the cost of entry, right? So you can buy a brand new construction home for $450,000 that is 2,000 square foot. That's unheard of in the Northeast, which is where I'm from, right? So a lot of Northeast investors are looking into this area and even West Coast, like California, you can probably buy a closet for that price. But essentially, a lot of out of state investors are pouring money into here to be able to diversify because of the growth that we're seeing here. There's a lot of new construction. Many of those floor plans for the new construction are very favorable for short-term rentals as well. So because of that, we're able to get investors into properties at a quicker rate, with less renovation out of pocket as well, and then just mainly focus on design and furnishing and amenities rather than having to go full on gut rehab or add space or things like that.
Is that what you're seeing more of? They're just buying new builds for specifically short-term rentals, or it's more of the Burr method?
I'm seeing a lot of new construction being used towards short-term rentals.
Really?
Yeah, most of the clients that I've worked with as well are purchasing these new constructions for short-term rentals because it's easier for them, right? The floor plans already exist rather than having to create it. The Burr method will work, but you at that point now need to hire a general contractor. You need to hire someone to be able to oversee the work that would be required for that. So it takes extra time and extra money to do that, but someone that's looking for a turnkey option, new construction is the fastest approach.
Yeah, that's just interesting to hear because you always hear the Burr was big a couple years ago, but now since the home prices have kind of squeezed a little bit more, the profit side is tougher. And then, for what you're saying, they're putting down 20% on a property and then they're putting in all the amenities and all the furnishings in there. I think I forgot to touch on that, but what is the standard range for furnishings on a house you just described, like a 2,000 square foot house, four bedroom?
Yeah, so typically the standard is between seven to $10,000 per bedroom set. So if you have a four-bedroom house, you're looking at around $40,000 to furnish the entire house. So that's including kitchen, living room, dining room. It doesn't take into account like a garage converted or a hot tub or anything like that, right? It's just full on turnkey interior furnishings. So it is pricey. So when you look at $40,000 of furnishings and then you add design fees, which vary drastically based off of who you work with and the size of your house as well, um, it adds up pretty fast. And that's why some of these investors are looking at the turnkey option because they're like, well, now I just have to pay for a painter and a wallpaper person, rather than have to pay for someone like a contractor to be able to take on a full scope of tearing walls down and things like that. So from that perspective, to answer your question, yeah, furnishings are $40,000 or $10,000 per bedroom.
Yeah, but it sounds like that's kind of the separation now in Airbnbs because, you're not finding whatever you did at the Goodwill and throwing it in your house. And now it needs to be a complete separation. It's not, hey, I had this spare old bed that I could throw in this property. No, it needs to be new. It needs to be a certain brand. Funny enough, in ours, I know you use the same brand, the Zinus
Mhm.
mattresses. We had somebody comment that it was too hard. Like, what? What do you mean? Every Airbnb uses this. So that was
Yeah.
interesting. That made me laugh. But yeah, I mean, but being able to put the money into it is going to make it such a better experience. And that's what I like what you're doing because, it's a unique stay. It's not just a normal stay. For the
Yeah.
normal stays, those are the people that are going to be staying in there for a month or two or maybe more. But what you're looking for, it sounds like you're not focusing on the medium term. You're specifically looking at the short term.
Yeah, absolutely. Our goal is to get the weekends booked out at a premium and then backfill the weekdays based off of like what our weekend went for, right? So we have every property has a baseline of what we're expecting to make for it. And then our goal at the end of the day is to make sure that the weekends get booked at a premium ahead of time so that way we can go lower on the nightly rates for the weekdays and for a longer period of time. So that way we can get like construction workers or anyone that's coming in just for a week, right? We can get them in at a cheaper rate than a hotel. So that way we can capitalize on that.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense because that's what we're specifically focusing on medium term rentals up in where my Airbnb is, but I don't know about me playing in the Charlotte market right now. But what's coming up that you're excited for before we send you out of here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see what Charlotte has to offer. There's so much more commercial space coming up here as well. Like the east side or the east side of Charlotte is expanding so much. So I'm very excited to see what commercial developments occur here to be able to offer cheaper housing for newer investors trying to get into this market as well. Personally, I have three projects coming up in like literally the next 30 days. So I'm excited to get those projects designed, set up, and under management in the next few days or few months.
Awesome. And if somebody wants to follow along on what you're doing, if they want to work with you as a co-host, or even just finding another Airbnb in the city, what's the best place to contact you to go and do that?
Instagram. Instagram is probably the best place to follow me or for follow me for my journey and the best place to contact me as well. I respond to all messages on there, even the ones that go into the general category. So I'll check on them and I'll definitely get in touch with you via Instagram.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, Hamong, thank you so much for being on. That's tons of knowledge because I know a lot of people have been doing Airbnbs and we're starting to see that slow kind of decline. But, being able to have you on and be able to explain basically, hey, this is what's working in this market now. It's not the same. You have to be different. You have to be unique. So that's what you're doing. And I love being able to watch it, especially through Instagram and everything you're doing, working with the Monarch Group and everything Angie and her crew are doing down there. So make sure you go follow Hemang. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. And as for this episode, we will see you on the next one.